Hello, welcome to Underlords Universe, where we chit chat about a lot of stuff that inspires us to be creative in our own way. More on that
Mhm.
at the tail end of our discussion here. But we're going to be doing a conversation on the first 5 Blue Oyster Cult albums. So if you've stumbled across this today for the first time, please like and subscribe to our channel. That'd be really, really cool. We'd really appreciate it. And if you're a Blue Oyster Cult fan, maybe throw in a few comments of your own and engage the conversation a little bit. We're going to be doing a series here on Blue Oyster Cult, focusing first on the first 5 Blue Oyster Cult albums. Then we're going to do another one on the next set of 5, and so on up through the entire catalog. So the way we kind of do this is we have a ranking system where we take each song up to 5 points, divide by the total number of songs possible for an average. And Brent, I know you do this. I also do a percentage out of the total points possible. So that way we try to keep ourselves as honest and as objective about what is subjective. trying to quantify the qualitative, so to speak. So do you guys have any just general comments about Blue Oyster Cult before we head in here and dig into the first 5 albums?
Thanks for letting me be part of the conversation. I've been a BOC fan for a long time, and I'm really excited for any reason to talk about them. I've loved them since I was in high school, which was a long time ago.
We're not getting any younger. Say what? What was that, Josh?
I just said thanks for being part of the group and
Yeah, and I was
contributing to our insanity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and to that point, I was going to just make a quick little thank you for joining us, Bryon. And you just real quick before we get into the BOC stuff, you have been involved in a huge range of creative endeavors based in Ames, Iowa, for
Mhm.
a long time. And I mean, you've got podcasts, and you've got a record label. You've done showcases of bands, and you've been gracious to allow us to
Mhm.
be part of that before. Do you want to just give a quick comment about the kinds of things you're up to right now in your own creative endeavors?
Sure. The main thing that's been going on the longest is my band Strong Like Bear has
Mhm.
been we're coming up on like 15 years or something like that we've been
Wow.
together. And we're working on our second. We always like mix things up a little bit. We started out being a folk pop band. In our last album, we went stoner rock. And we had so much fun with that. We were getting ready to switch it up again. We're like, we can't leave it. We can't. So we're working on our second stoner rock album.
Excellent.
So that's a lot of fun. One of the other, I run a recording studio, so I've been working on a lot of recording stuff there.
The
Lately,
Spaceman.
the Spaceman, yeah, yeah. And one of the main things that's been kind of fun, just as a pure creative outlet, is I've been working on a project called Spare Mondays.
Hmm.
I was in a band called Moon Rabbit, and that got together Monday nights, and then one of the members had a kid and was unable to like get together regularly. But some of the rest of us wanted to keep getting together, and so we just started getting together. What do you want to do? Let's do whatever we want. So we've been showing up in the studio Mondays, and what do you feel like doing tonight? And just grabbing something and going.
That's
And it's
cool.
been and so it's been like there's no songwriting, there's no rehearsing. It's all just grab something and let's just jam and record what happens. And so that's been a lot of fun.
That's cool.
But yeah, some of the label Nova Labs is the label, and that's kind of gotten dormant because it's mostly a CD based label, and people don't really buy CDs anymore. So
No, it,
unfortunately, yeah,
just a few kind of nerds like me. I'll say
yeah,
I still buy
yeah.
them, but yeah,
I still buy them too. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. But
But
I like all kinds of music. Yesterday I got excited because there's a new Dua Lipa song, and so I checked that out. But I also like really love. You don't find as many people, it seems, that are into like metal and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So, yeah. So I appreciate any reason to get together with fellow
Yeah,
metalheads.
yeah, yeah, and the whole creative endeavor is kind of interesting, as you go from year to year to year, and you just kind of see what your own creative journey is. And And yours is interesting to watch because of how many things you're involved in. I mean, I'm a fan of the podcast Hair Metal Memories, for example.
Oh,
And,
thank you. Yeah,
I
yeah.
just I'll do that and I'll be like, oh, okay. Like I haven't listened to Dokken for how many years? I need to
Right.
pull out a Dokken record. So
Yeah, hell yeah.
yeah, and if you don't mind when I post this, I know you actually have a much greater reach at this point than we do, but I still would be happy to put some links below to anything that you want to link into when I
Oh, thank you.
so, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Well,
the hair metal memories has been super fun. That's taken on a life of its own. We thought we'd do a couple episodes for our friends, and a lot of our friends don't even listen to it now. And it's like people from around the world who write
mhm.
into us and stuff. And it's like it's been pretty crazy actually. It's been in a very nice way.
Yeah, and you do a great job with it. Okay, so Blue Oyster Cult guys, you want to get in?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Josh, I need to credit you for getting me into Blue Oyster Cult with Secret Treaties. So the first album I ever heard by Blue Oyster Cult. Thank you. But that's obviously not where we're starting. We're going to start with the debut Blue Oyster Cult album, which Brent, you're excellent with dates. I think this is what, 72, correct?
That's right. 72.
72. So initial thoughts on the debut Blue Oyster Cult album, guys, in terms of highs, lows, overall impressions, etc.
Why don't we maybe we won't let Bryon start. We'll kind of go
Sure.
around the horn. We go Bryon, Josh, Bryon, and then
Okay.
me, and then
Yeah.
we do that. Since we'll let our guest, our friend, start off and kind of.
Okay. Well,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I loved a reason to like listen to the. I mean, I've listened to all of them, before, but listening to them in an organized, like sort of contemplative sort of fashion was really cool. I'd forgotten how psychedelic they were
Oh, right.
back in
Yeah.
1972. Yeah, this is a very psychedelic album. So I don't know if they were trying to match the current at the time or if that's what they really were into or what. But while they were psychedelic sounding, they're also very tough sounding, which is sort of a weird mix, I think, in 1972.
That's an interesting observation. Yeah.
For highs, I really liked I like a Transmaniacon MC that has such a great riff. I gave that a 4. Before the Kiss of Red Cap, I mean, it's a goofy ass song.
Right.
But that bass line is so great to it. I gave that a 4 as well. Cities on Flame with Rock and Roll, that's about as Sabbathy as probably BOC ever got. And
Right.
it's like and so I gave that a 4.5 because just I love Sabbath so much. How could I not? Yeah. Lows. I like this album a lot. Probably the lowest I gave anything throughout all of this is probably a 3, just
Okay.
because I love them. And I tried to be super critical, but I just love the band too much. So for some reason, 3 ended up being the bottom number for me. But like I'm on the lamb, but I ain't no sheep. I gave that one a 3.
Well, it's tough when you really love a band and it's like, well,
Yeah.
but I find myself kind of thinking it's like all in the context of that band's work. So it's like if I'm listening to this song, it's well, how does it rank up to other songs of theirs rather than some other band or something. So yeah. Josh, did you looked for a second like you wanted to jump in there?
No, I mean, I don't want to cut Bryon off if he's still talking about.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
But I really agree with this point. I think that Blue Oyster Cult is such a singularly unique band because it's like, what the hell is this? It's not really heavy metal. It's not really psychedelic, but it's blending them. It's almost like proto stoner metal stuff that's just, and it's incredibly complex. And I think that, when you get into it, it's like, it's deceptively complex music throughout their entire career. You'll listen to something that's like, oh yeah, that's kind of straightforward. But then when you really dig into it, it's like, there's a lot of subtlety and complexity in their music. And I've been huge fan since I was a teenager. And probably one of the most influential bands for me. I like their first album a lot. You can definitely hear the seeds of what they're going to become. The only, as far as highs and lows, for me, a high on this album is Cities on Flame. To me, that is absolutely one of the greatest riffs in rock history. So I absolutely love that song. I love Transmaniacon. I think, unlike Bryon, I really love I'm on the Land, but I hate sheep. It's a fun song. It's so stupid. It's just so fun. Those are really high points for me. Before the Kiss of Redcap, you mentioned that one. I gave that a 4.5. Absolutely love that song. Just a blast. There's so much. It's fun, but it's like
a
weird,
boogie.
dark fun.
Yeah, and it's got a bit of a boogie that makes it a kind of a fun thing. So
again, it's just so many. There's so many ingredients in this music. It's just so strangely bizarre. Some of the lower songs on there. I did give 1 2.5 for Screams. Not a favorite of mine. There are some 3s and some 3.5s. It's a good album all the way through. So
yeah, Brent, I kind of wanted you to follow, but do you mind if I just jump in real quick on, because you mentioned Screams. You said, what did you give, Josh? Would you give Screams?
A 2.5.
2.5. Okay. I Screams is actually one of my favorite parts of the album. I love the way Screams goes into She's as Beautiful as a Foot, which, I mean, is there a better song title than that, right?
A Fact About Sneakers from the Stock Forest group is actually a better song.
Well, it's up there for sure. But I mean, they have such weird, lyrics, and of course, the guys in the band themselves aren't writing. I mean, Buck ends up writing some lyrics, down the road, but it's Sandy Pearlman that writes a lot of this stuff, and a lot of this stuff has seeds that all get planted into the Imaginos thing, which kind of comes to fruition later on. But I like this album a lot, but I tend to think of it as, like a lot of debut albums, it's like you can see the seeds of what is gonna come later. My personal favorites on the album really, because those 2 songs are so weird. That to me, that's kind of the high point, is Screams and She's as Beautiful as a Foot. I do think it's interesting to listen to, like, I'm on the Lamb, and then to compare it to the Red and the Black on the next album, since it's the same.
Yeah,
it's just, they rewrote the song basically. But I've also never been a huge fan of Redeemed. It's a little bit more of a throwback to the Stock Forest.
Yeah,
it's a little
it feels like an outlier.
Yeah, it does feel like an outlier for sure. And as far as the, like, Then Came the Last Days of May, it's kind of weird. Like, I know that's a really popular song. I actually gave it a 2.5, and it's weird when I go see them live. I prefer that they don't play it, because I'm not a huge fan of it. But when they do play it live, especially with their current incarnation, Buck and Richie Castellano, I mean, the guitar soloing that they add into it is so great. But we're not here judging the live, a latter live version. We're judging the studio versions. So to me, on the average, though, I came down at that. This is a 3.4 album for me. But I don't know, Brent, what do you have any thoughts on that one?
Sure. So I would say that, and some of this stuff has already been said. The tone of the album is kind of weird, creepy, dark, bizarre.
It is a bit creepy.
I think there's some progressive elements to it. It's a little all over the map in terms of styles. I don't know that you would say maybe it's early. Some of it's early heavy metal, like Bryon mentioned, the riff, "Cities on Flame," being very Sabbathy. That's probably maybe the heaviest song they've ever done. I think it's an incredibly good debut effort. I would put it up there with Rush's debut, Kiss's debut, in terms of just in how good a record it is, and then also how impactful it is. Because I think probably all of us would agree that personally, that this band has been a huge influence on us in terms of the music we like to produce and write, and so forth. So the highest for me, Cities on Flame, I gave that a 5. I just had to. That is the high point of the record.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
And I'd be interesting to hear from all of you on this, because Bryon, you said Cities on Flame is a high point for you as well, right? And you're a big Sabbath fan too. And I think we all know that they were kind of maybe pegged as possibly the American Black Sabbath. And, clearly that song is inspired by The Wizard. Sabbath's The Wizard. So I'm just curious, if you had to put Cities on Flame up against The Wizard by Black Sabbath, what would you pick?
Cities on Flame.
No, that's tough.
That's really tough.
That's my job, is to give you guys tough questions.
Yeah.
I think I gave The Wizard 5 stars too, but I'd go with Cities on Flame.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of the best riffs in rock history.
Yeah.
Even though they kind of stole it a little bit.
Yeah.
They perfected it.
Bryon, I don't know.
They added to it.
I think I'd go with Cities on Flame. I've been like racking my brain a little bit. And I think just because I think the lyrics are a little better. I think that's what edges it for me. Is I think that, like, you know, the riffs are both great and everything, and based on the music, I would have a really hard time. I love them equally, but like I think the lyrics are just a little bit better on Cities on Flame.
I would agree as well that I prefer Cities on Flame, and for me, a lot of it comes down to the fact that I'm not a big fan of harmonica. So,
Fair.
I was going to ask you to join a harmonica band.
Well, you know, you might have to look up.
Now.
Right.
So,
yeah,
you know, blues travelers right out.
It does. Right. Yeah.
I was going to ask John Popper to join us too, but I guess.
So going back to the record, another thing, you know, the song titles are extremely long, and you know, their early career, a lot of these titles are just very, very wordy. That's another observation. But some other really good songs on the record. I really like Stairway to the Stars. I give that a 4. She's as Beautiful as a Foot. I gave that a 4. That's one that's a little creepy, weird, really good. Yeah. And you know, Bryon, you mentioned Redeemed. I think that's a hidden gem on this record. I gave that a 4. So overall, it's a 3.5 star record for me, and it came in at 73%. Very solid.
Okay. What was your average for that, Brent? I'm just going to go ahead and grab it since you mentioned it.
73%, 3.5 stars. 3.65 was the actual number.
Okay. Yeah. Give me the actual numbers if you can, because that way I can average them all together. So, Bryon, what was your?
I was pretty close. I was 3.75, or 75%. I felt roughly the same way about it. Okay. Yeah, and I think the long titles, I think they're coming out swinging, going, we're a more literary band. Yeah, I think it's kind of that's what it seems like they're trying to demonstrate anyway.
Yeah, I think so too. Josh, what did you have for?
It was right in the middle of Brent and Bryon. It came out at a 3.7 or a 74%.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Cool. All right. Sweet. We'll see how it stacks up. You know, Tyranny and Mutation obviously kicks off with a rewrite of I'm on the Lam, which I think is an improvement myself. On the whole, I think Tyranny and Mutation is a better record. I gave it, the numbers came out to me at 3.75, whereas for me the debut was 3.4. But I think Mistress of the Salmon Salt might be that, and Seven Screaming Disbusters are like those two songs just fight. They're like two rats in a can just going at it. You know, they're like, I mean, Seven Screaming Disbusters has, I think, one of the greatest BOC riffs of all time. I think Mistress of the Salmon Salt is just so pleasantly strange.
Creepy. It's another creepy one.
It's I mean, that darkness, but it's kind of
dark, man.
It's yeah.
It's dark, but kind of with a happy chorus, right? The quick glad girl.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, OD'd on Life Itself, I actually prefer the version that's on Cult Classic that they re-recorded years later.
I do too.
But I think it's a really, really strong record. Hot Rails to Hell. I mean, how do you go wrong with that? A great Joe Bouchard song, right?
And the vocal harmony of that song.
Yeah, definitely.
And Patti Smith coming in helping with lyrics on that song too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's pretty good lyricist.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Bryon, since you're kind of jumping in there, what are your highs and lows on Tyranny and Mutation?
I actually didn't like Tyranny and Mutation as much because for me it's sort of like almost like more just a standard blues rock album for me. Okay. So they came out swinging with this psychedelia and all this other all this crazy stuff, planting all these seeds, and then Tyranny and Mutation was they wrote it on tour, so that probably
did
makes it
they?
a little bit more. Yeah,
Well,
so that's
I
probably
guess
a little more difficult.
Yeah.
that does make
But
sense. They would be out on the road a lot.
yeah, they were out on the road with the first album, so they were busy writing the second one, and I think it kind of shows a little bit for me, just because they're like, oh, here's some good standard blues stuff.
Okay.
I mean, I still liked it. I gave it a 3.41 overall, 68%. But I thought this is the one where they brought in Patti Smith for a couple songs, which I thought was a really good move on their part. You know, and again, I like this one. I just didn't like it as much as the debut.
Sure. Okay. Brent.
Yeah. But the highest for me, I like Wings Wetted Down a lot, because it's like that's where they brought in some of the psychedelia from the first album still, but still incorporated it with the blues that they had going on.
And that one's a bit creepy too, don't you think?
Yeah.
It's got a little,
Yeah.
still has that creepy vibe to it.
What makes, I'm kind of curious, what causes the creepy vibe? I agree with you, but what is,
I don't know.
is it the weird creepy sing-song harmonies that they're doing while they're singing about crazy stuff?
I don't know. It's just the sonic
Yeah.
stew that they put together. I don't know, Josh.
It's intangible. I don't know what it is that makes it so bizarre. They're like a horror movie rock band.
Yeah.
Even the
Really
guitar
smart.
tones.
Really smart, not a slasher horror movie. It's just they're just no one sounds like them. They just do they're so that's why I use the word singular to describe them.
Well,
it's just,
yeah.
Even the guitar tones can be a little bit, you know, unique. Even in as we get into the other albums we're going to be talking about, the guitar tones and the production values add to that creepiness a little bit as well, I think, throughout the records. But you know, then you get into the lyrical content and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with Josh. I agree with that.
I think that the earliest albums have maybe the most kind of creepy feel to them at times, but almost kind of in a to me it seems very it's like if Lovecraft had a sound.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Perfect.
That totally tracks.
You know, Brent had mentioned earlier that, you know, they were a huge musical influence, but, you know, and I don't want to go too far down this road, but from a writing perspective, because there's something really creepy but absurd about what Oyster Cult is doing. And I think that was a huge influence for me from a writing perspective, because it's like, who does that? Who creates stuff like this? And I think that when you see people going this direction of like doing something so unique, it inspires you to say, I can do something maybe just as weird, or be, you know, led by that weirdness that they do. And I think that as a writer, it was they were a huge influence for me.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, it seems like we gravitate to bands. I mean, obviously we have, you know, our own individual tastes, but bands that just have their own unique fingerprint. It's like, like you say, well, who does that? Well, Blue Oyster Cult does that, and no one else does that. And so then when you start your own creative stuff, it's like, well, you know, you want to be inspired by other people, but you don't want to just copy them. You know, you don't want to be just a pastiche of something. So, and they clearly are this weird mix. I can see, Bryon, what you're saying about the album. It just seems a little more cohesive, a little more tighter, maybe a little more blues inspired. For me, that worked, but and I love, you know, they call it the black and white period, right? And I do love the artwork for these albums is just fantastic. So
and I also wanted to say, like, throughout like all of this stuff, I think, you know, I think we probably all would agree they try a lot of things. They do a lot, and so like, you know, it depends on, like, you know, what you're bringing to it, for one, what you like, and then also, like, you know, and they're not fantastic at everything. They're pretty good at most things, you know.
That's
but they get like, but the fact that they're trying so much is like just amazing to
me. Yeah, absolutely. Josh, did you get in on highs and lows on Tyranny and Mutation yet, or not? Or
no,
Brent, did we interrupt Brent? I can't remember.
No, I hadn't started yet.
Oh, you hadn't started? Okay. Well, Josh, do you want to give us your thoughts?
Yeah, just quickly. You know, I thought I liked this. It came in at almost the same score as the debut album. It came in at a 3.75, so literally like 1 percentage point higher.
Yeah.
I love, I think they break it into the black and the red. I think the first side is the black and the second side is
Mhm.
I do like the black quite a bit more. Hot Rails to Hell's a 5 for me. Screaming Disbusters is 4.5. Red and the Black's a 4.5. Side 2, the red. It's interesting, Brian's point about how they get into some of the weirder stuff and how we like that. I've never quite connected with that side of the record as much, like Wings Wetted Down, Teen Archer. So those were all scoring more around the 3s and 3.5s for me. But they're interesting. It's weird and interesting stuff they do. It just didn't quite grab me.
It's funny. I actually, for me, Baby Ice Dog, Wings Wetted Down, and Teen Archer, to me, those are all 3-3-3. And then,
yeah, me too.
Me too.
Mistress of the Salmon Salt was the 5. That's just like where it just comes right back to me. It's not that I dislike those other songs. It's just in relative terms.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brent?
I agree with Josh. I think the first half of the album is super strong. Those first 4 songs, OD'd on Life itself is one of my favorites. I give that a 5. Hot Rails to Hell is a 5. The Red and the Black's a 4. Disbusters is a 4. So really out of the gate strong. I think the record is, like you guys have said, more straightforward, a little bit more basic. I think it also shows a little bit of a development in the writing and kind of where they're going. I think you can already see that in the second record. Second half of the record, my favorite song would be Mistress of the Salmon Salt. I gave that a 4. So overall, nothing less than a 3. Solid, a really good follow-up to the debut. It came in at 3.88 for me, which is 77.5%. So
you gave it the highest score out of all of us.
And this was one that was a bit of a surprise. I didn't know what to expect kind of going into these.
Yeah.
And this one was a bit of a surprise when I did it. Pleasantly surprised.
Can I ask you guys, like, when was the last time you listened to these first few BOC albums? Or how long has it been since you've listened to them?
I probably hadn't listened to this one in maybe 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years at least for me.
Yeah.
I went through a big BOC phase a couple of years ago, ran the whole catalog, but it had been a while.
as one does when they go.
As one does.
Yeah.
I pull out the BOC albums once a year and listen to them at least once a year. I actually rated these back in December because I know it's taken us a while to kind of get this scheduled. And all of a sudden I was looking at my scores this morning and I was like, I need to readdress it. So I pulled them out and was listening to various points there were a couple of small adjustments, but overall it didn't change that much. But for me, it's always a pleasure to listen to this. I throw it on. This is really, I mentioned, the whole literary side of it. I listen to a lot of BOC when I read because again, it's so weird. It just gets you into a certain mindset to be creative. So I listen to it a lot. I love BOC.
Yeah, cool. All right. How about we move along to I get the light to work on. Yes.
Oh, I hate this album.
Secret Treaties. Yeah, I'll bet you do. Since I'm sure you hate it so much, why don't you start us off with this one?
I love this record. This is we talk sometimes about desert island records.
Yeah.
And I consider this a desert island record. If I had to go to a desert island and I could only take like 20 albums with me.
Yeah.
I think this is in that list. Across my entire collection. I absolutely love this album. It's so weird. They perfect the weirdness on this album. And there's nothing bad. There's nothing bad on the other albums, but they've gone to a whole new level on this. I have several 5s on this album. Dominant Submission's a 5. KG Cretin's a 5. Harvester of Eyes is a 5. Flaming Telepaths is a 5. You've got ME262, which is a 4.5. Career of Evil is a 4.5. The lowest thing on this album is 3.5, and that's Astronomy. I really like Astronomy. It's just kind of it's just a little bit lower than the other songs on this album. This from start to finish is this is a powerhouse. This is it's a magnum opus, if you will. It's pretty good. What I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you mean?
Brent, do you agree with the overall assessment of that Josh pointed out there?
Yeah, I do. As a matter of fact, the lowest grade I gave on this record is a 3.5, and that's ME262, and I could bump that up to a 4 very easily. So, um, and Josh mentions KG Cretans. That's also, I could have bumped up that to a 4.5 or a 5. But this record it's a slammer from start to finish. There's nothing weak on it. It's great. High points for me, Career of Evil. I mean, right out of the gate. Come on, man. I mean,
right?
You start a record better than that, and is there a better title ever than Career of Evil?
That you're right. That's in the running for one of the greatest titles of all time.
Absolutely. Harvester of Eyes. Now, some of these, when they did Cult Classic, the re-records are very, very good, if not even better. But it doesn't matter. The originals are so good. Career of Evil, 5. Harvester of Eyes, 5. Flaming Telepaths, 5. Subhuman, 4. Dominance and Submission, 4. KG Cretans, 4. Astronomy, 4. It doesn't let up.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop. It's such a good listen. And this is a quantum leap from the debut. I think everybody would agree. In just 2 years.
We'll find out. We'll find out. Maybe we all don't agree.
I agree with Josh.
I agree with Josh. The numbers, man.
I agree with Josh. Love this record. You want me to give you the numbers, or you want me to wait? I can give them to you.
Just give me your overall percent. Or not your percent. Your average. Give me your average.
4.31, 86.25%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great
album. Bryon, do you agree when Brent said, I'm sure we all agree. Do we agree? I don't know. What do you think? I
do agree.
Okay.
I do agree. My first note on this was like, now we're talking. Because it was like, this is the album where they became BOC, I think, where they kept trying.
Yes.
Before they were trying, it felt like they were like, well, let's try some of this, let's try that. It seemed like they were trying to fit molds of some kind. And this is the one where they said, screw that, let's do our own thing, let's become Blue Oyster Cult. And pretty much everything on this album levels up, I think.
Hey, not to interrupt, Bryon, but I'm going to. But I have to ask this question: Would you agree that this is the record that basically defined their sound in their career? Like this is the album that identifies them as BOC, like you said.
Yeah, I think this is really the first BOC album as we know them today. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with you. Yeah. So okay, since it's so good, and I'll put Bryon on the spot here. If you had to pick, a low point on an otherwise stellar record. I mean, what is the low point for you?
I had the low point for me was KG Cretans, and even that one I love. I mean, I gave it a 3.6, but I love the organ on it, and it's a very driving song. It's not a bad song. It's not even weak, but in comparison to the other ones, I liked it just a little bit less.
Okay, and it's fun that you mentioned that one because Josh and I just saw them out in Josh, where did we see them? Davenport. Right? Yeah. And
wow.
It was great. That was a great show. And they pulled that track out, didn't they?
No kidding.
They played KG. And Josh and I kind of looked at each other like, okay, now we're talking,
Yeah, now we're talking.
And if I may, I don't normally recite lyrics on these, but that song, I can barely see this even with my glasses because I'm graduating in one more term because I haven't any time to burn. Repeating taste of high-heeled shoe. An eel is waiting under the train, being chased around by the neighbor's cat. Well, it's so lonely in the state of Maine. I couldn't say it any better. I mean, I couldn't write it.
Let's go on 11 and say being chased around by the neighbor's cat is the greatest lyric in any song.
And it's on this album.
It's great. It's absolutely great. Yeah.
So I gave to me KG Cretans and Harvester of Eyes, to me those are two of the high points. I actually give both those 5s. I give Dominant Submission a 5, Career of Evil. I mean, to me the low point is usually ME262. Even though I like it a lot, it's to me it's the kind of the more standard kind of blues kind of song.
It is,
but it's really good. So I agree with you guys. Brent, you were correct. We all did agree that this is a really
Yeah.
smoking record. So
Pretty good.
Yeah, and I think Flaming Telepaths is like the catchiest thing so far of these
Oh,
three
man.
albums. That's like the catchiest thing that they've done. I think that's when they're sort of like, hey, could we write a pop song? You know, or
It's got a bit of a
or-
swing, a little bit of a swing to it with the piano.
Mhm.
Whatnot.
Well,
Yeah, it's a good
and-
call out.
And don't you love
Yeah.
like the segues from track to track on this record? It's like
Yeah.
they all just kind of, you know, there's that like
Yeah.
music box kind of sound thing, and then it comes in with that like Brent, like you said, that piano, and
Mhm.
so good,
Mhm.
so good.
Mhm. Yeah.
Arguably one of the best albums of all time, I think.
Mhm.
We'll find out, I guess. But Brent, or no, you said 4.31.
Yes.
Bryan, what was your average?
I had a 4.06 or 81%.
Okay. And Josh, what's yours?
4.56 or 91%.
Okay.
Mhm.
I thought maybe I'd grab all these numbers at the end, but it's proving to be real slick just to get them down right now. So
I
cool.
feel like I was too harsh now.
Say what, Bryan? What was that?
I was trying to be very critical, and now I feel like I was too harsh.
Oh,
Right. Yeah.
well, and I always tell myself when I'm going through this, it's like, oh my gosh, is this a 4.5 or is it a 5? And it's like,
Right.
ultimately, if it sparks the conversation and it's
Right.
making me listen to the songs in a new light, that's what I like about doing this. But
Yeah.
and one more thing I thought was interesting, as far as maybe I'm wrong, maybe you guys could correct me on this because you are all BOC, aficionados here, but I think Buck only wrote on Dominance, Harvester, and Flaming Telepath.
He wasn't writing a lot of his early albums.
Mhm.
Interesting. Which of course he becomes the guy who writes, their
The hits.
the hits. Yeah.
Speaking
So-
of,
And with that,
there's your segue.
There's
Yeah, that's a good
Brent.
segue.
Brent, since you noticed that segue, why don't you carry us on into Agents of Fortune?
I'd be happy to. This record, I think, just me personally, it's a little bit all over the place. It's not the most cohesive BOC record. We just got done talking about how the last one is really cohesive in terms of the styles and the writing.
Is that a pro or is that a bug or a feature? I mean, is that a pro or a con?
It's just an observation. It's neither really.
Okay.
It doesn't help or hinder the record, in my opinion. It's just
Okay.
an observation.
Okay.
Like you start off with "This Ain't the Summer of Love." It's kind of a weird opener, right? I mean, it's like,
Mhm.
and it's not my favorite song on the record. In fact, it's probably one of my lesser favorites on the record. But again, there's nothing bad on this album. There's nothing bad on any of these records we've talked about so far. Similar production style in terms of what you would say when you compare it to Secret Treaties, I think. Again, it still kind of maintains almost like a mysterious type of a production quality. A little bit of the creepiness, I think, returns kind of in Revenge of Vera Gemini, has a bit of a creepy aura to it.
Okay. I could see that.
The mega hit, Don't Fear the Reaper, I like it. It's not my favorite song on the record. My favorite song on the record is Tattoo Vampire and ETI. Those are 5-star songs. ETI, I think we would agree maybe that it's one of their popular moments, but again, what a fantastic riff. That I think is even better on Cult Classic.
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
I do love the original version. I think some hidden gems on the record might be like Morning Final. I gave that a 4. Vera Gemini, I give that a 4. I don't dislike anything on the record. The lowest grade I gave was a 3, but I gave 3s to a handful of songs. So this record didn't grade as well as the previous one, but it's still a good listen. It's just, I think overall it's not very cohesive. Stylistically, it's a bit all over the map.
Yeah.
That's just an observation. I gave it 3.7 star average, so it's 74%. So it's a solid 3.5 star record for me.
You said 3.7?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Do you guys agree that it's stylistically disjointed?
Yeah.
Do you think that that's
Yeah.
a bug or a feature, or do you agree with Brent that it's just an observation?
Probably just an observation, I would say, because
Okay.
because they kind of always do that in a way. They're always all over the place.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I guess it's a matter of degrees, right?
Degrees, right?
Yeah. Well, Bryan, what are your thoughts on the highs and lows here? Because I think it's interesting. Brent, you mentioned Vera Gemini as one of the solid tracks, and I'm curious to see what the rest of you think about it, because I have a different opinion about that. So yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
I like Fear of Gemini. That one has a Patti Smith lyrics to it, you know.
Yeah.
Like and whenever she got involved with them lyrically, it seemed like they brought their A game. Is kind of my overall feeling. Like, like they're not gonna give a song to Patti Smith unless they feel really good about it, I thought that ETI is a classic. I mean, that chorus is so catchy. That's one of my favorite songs by him ever, actually. I think. I thought on the downside, I thought like Tattoo Vampire and Debbie Denise were kind of like returns to like goofiness and psychedelic stuff. Like it's like callbacks to the first couple albums. So I don't know if they were just going back to the mill on that one or something like that. But I also feel like this overall in this album is where they became super solid songwriters. On the Secret Treaties, they proved they could do it, but on this one, they're sort of like, we can do something significant and change the course of rock and roll.
What was your?
This was it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I say this album was huge for them. It's also the first album where they wrote demos first, so I think that kind of ties into them becoming songwriters because they were writing on the road, they were writing as they needed, and all that stuff. And this is the one where they said like, okay, well now we've got our place, we've made enough money, we can take our time and get this one right. And even when they take the time and get it right and become solid songwriters, they still throw in goofy shit sometimes. So
yes. Yeah, goofy, that's definitely the way to put it. It's
can I make a comment, Bryon, real quick on Tattoo Vampire? That's at this point, that's one of the heaviest songs they'd ever done. That's a heavy song for 76. Really bizarre, vocals going on in the chorus. I love that song. Love that song. Just an observation about how heavy it is, the chugging riff and whatnot.
Well, Bryon, you made an interesting point, which I hadn't thought of, and now it's like smacking me upside the head. And I agree with Brent about Tattoo Vampire, but you mentioned how they're kind of bringing back a little that psychedelic element, and it's like, well, that whole breakdown in the middle, it is really psychedelic, and I always saw that the bookends, the more hard rock bookends on that song, so I didn't really think of it as being as psychedelic, but you're right, it actually really is, at least in that middle part.
And I think like Tenderloin is like where they have some prog rock moments in there, and that's the first time we've gotten a taste of that, I think, because they can play that stuff,
Josh.
Yeah, I agree with what folks are saying. It's a little bit more of a disparate album than Secret Treaties, and there's more experimentation going on, I think. The album scores really well for me. It's a little bit more of a peaks and valleys album for me. So you've got peaks like, Don't Fear the Reaper is a 5. I mean, it's a perfect song. ETI is a 5. Vera Gemini for me is a 5. Like, I love that song. That's like a favorite for me. Tattoo Vampire is a 5. I think that's absolutely great. Sinful Love 4.5. The first 2 tracks. We haven't talked about True Confessions yet. Not really a favorite of mine. I think Alan Lanier sang lead vocals on that, which is a bit of a rarity. I love Alan Lanier, but
they
not
delve
one
into
of my favorite
country on that
songs. Yeah, it's it's like this weird throwback. But it's an interesting album. It still scores really well. It doesn't hit the level of a Secret Treaties, but it's a really interesting album with a lot of really great stuff on it. So really like this record.
Yeah, and they also start out with "This Ain't the Summer of Love," which lyrically they're turning their back on psychedelia with a statement like that, but then they also still play it. So
it's
like
interesting.
That's a good point. Yeah,
that's an interesting point.
I hadn't even considered that, but that's why it's fun to have conversations, because you're going to get this insight from the way someone else has perceived something, and I never thought of that, but that's really true. Josh, what was the average for you for Agents of Fortune?
It came out to a 4.1 or an 82% is what this one.
And Bryon, what was your average?
Mine was 4.08 or 82%. So we had that one the same.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah.
And then there's our minds.
Well, Josh, you mentioned Sinful Love. I mean, I love you like sin, but I won't be your pigeon.
Oh,
Man.
that's a great
Yeah.
song.
That's
a great song.
No, what
That's
a lyric. I won't be your pit.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I had to kind of look up and go, what the hell does that mean?
It's
mean,
kind of like
man.
when you get chased around by the neighbor's cat. It's kind of like
yeah.
no.
Yes.
That's another creepy song too.
Yeah. Well, and to Josh's point, maybe the neighbor's cat is chasing around the pigeon.
That could be. It's a sequel.
That's very proggy. It's very concept.
Yeah.
High concept prog.
It's yeah. I agree with you guys. I do think Tattoo Vampires that's probably my high point. But like if I was forced to pick like one song from the record, it would be Tattoo Vampire. I agree. I think Don't Fear the Reaper is one of those songs that might be overplayed, but I never tire of it. It's just a perfect song. My low point on it, honestly, I don't see Vera Gemini the same way you guys do. That's a low point for me. And Debbie Denise is kind of like, okay, I could it's there. I can listen to it.
I like it.
But I think Tenderloin is probably like the unsung hero of the record, maybe, perhaps.
I would agree. Yeah,
It's like
I would agree with that.
It's a little proggy, like you were saying, and definitely. I ended up with a 3.4 on this, which is actually that's the lowest compared to you guys. You guys all rated it just slightly higher than I did. So, okay. Do you guys think that they were trying to just simply repeat the success of Agents of Fortune when they got to Spectres? And that they were just like, okay, we kind of found what works for us, so we just need to do it again? Or do you think that they were actually continuing to push themselves in new directions?
I didn't get that impression.
You don't get that? Okay.
I didn't feel that way.
So you feel like they were continuing to push in new directions and try new things?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, with that in mind, let's get into this. Spectres are a little bit. This is the last of our first set, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Who wants to start us on this one? Brent, do you want to, or Bryon? You?
I'll start this one.
Arm wrestle over. Why don't you guys arm wrestle over who wants to start this?
I'll start this one.
Okay.
This was one that was a bit of a surprise, and again, one of the fun things about these assignments is you do run into some surprises when you do these reviews. And I really had forgotten how much I liked this record. As a matter of fact, prior to this, this might not even been on my radar in terms of a top 5, maybe top 8 BOC album, but I'll be surprised if it's not when all is said and done. This album, I think, is more consistent than Agents of Fortune. There's not. I want to be very clear. I give nothing in the first 5 records anything less than a 3, and for me, a 3 it's a good song. When you get something below a 3, there's things about that I don't quite like, and as we've discussed on previous episodes about previous songs, there are some songs that just don't work, and those songs get graded accordingly.
Are there any songs on this album that just don't work for you?
No.
Oh, okay.
They all work. As a matter of fact, there's only 3 songs in this record that I gave a 3 to. Everything else gets 4s and 5s. So let me get into that. The 4s,
okay.
Godzilla, Searching for Celine, Celestial the Queen, those are all 4s. The 5s, the heavy hitters, Golden Age of Leather. Yes, people, Fireworks is a 5. It's a 5.
Yes, people.
Going through the motions. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a 5. I Love the Night might be one of the greatest BOC songs ever written. That is a 5. So, what I say about this record is there are hidden gems on it. Like maybe a lot of people might not say that Going Through the Motions is a great song. Well, I'm saying it because it is. And this album is chock full of spectacular writing, vocals. It's just it's so good. So I love this record straight through. A great listen. If I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Golden Age of Leather. That song kind of takes you on a really interesting journey. It's got some really classic rock elements. It's got light and shade in it. It's just kind of got a little bit of everything that they do so well. Bryon talked about how on the last album they kind of started to get a little bit proggy maybe for the first time. But I think they're still developing as players and writers, and this record is another indication of that. But for me, it's one of their best works, especially of the first 5 albums.
Josh, your face kind of made some.
Oh, hold it! Let me give you the numbers. Bryon. Hold it.
Oh, okay. All right.
4.10, 82%. So, my friend, with that, I will turn it over to you after I set the table for you.
Okay, Josh, you kind of made it some faces there, and there's definitely some places on here where I know I disagree with him. I hear this differently than one area where I do agree is that on the whole, I actually like Spectres better than I remembered. But it never was a go-to BOC album for me. But Josh, you made some faces, so can you
So
please?
the funny thing is, my score is almost exactly the same as Brent's. It's a 40.5, which came out to an 81%. So it's a bit of a drop for me from
I'm sorry, what was the average for you?
The average is 4.05.
Okay.
Or 40.5 for the whole record. 81% was the percentage.
Gotcha.
I do agree with Brent on a lot of things, not everything. There are a lot of hidden gems in this album. And, Fireworks to me isn't one of them, but I gave it a 3.5. I like it. Going through the motions, boy, I am really interested that you put that as, did you say a 5?
Yes, sir.
And okay, so when I looked at my numbers this morning, I gave it a 3. And I was kind of like, God, do I even like it that much? I mean, Bonnie Tyler covered it. I don't know if you guys know that, but she covered it. And it's kind of like, I just don't know, man. I got to go listen to it again because I think I'm going to rate it lower. And I didn't. I kept it as a 3 because I do actually think it's a pretty solid song. But I don't quite like it as much as you.
I think the reason, Josh, just if I might, I love Eric's vocal on that song. I think it's one of the better vocals. That's one of the reasons that elevates it for me.
I will say that I always kind of dismiss that song, and then when I listened to it today, I was like, no, this is a solid song. I like it. I think that for me, high points. I mean, Godzilla. I'm sorry, but I love that song. That's a 5.
Yeah.
You mentioned Golden Angel Leather. I put it as a 4.5. I could have put it as a 5, but I didn't. I'm trying to hold myself back a little bit. I Love the Night is an absolutely perfect song. And that's a 5. Nobody's talked about Nosferatu yet, but Nosferatu is a 5 for me. That the album ending with I Love the Night and Nosferatu is like maybe the best ending to a BOC album yet. And those are perfect songs. And I just love those songs. Really good album. Again, came in a little bit lower overall because it's a little bit less. Like, I'm not as big a fan of Searching for Celine. So there's a couple of moments where it dips, but it never dips to a point where it's like, I don't like this. It dips to that's solid, but it's not quite as high as they've been before. So I do think that it's a really, really good album.
No, Bryon, what do you think? You agree with this overall? I'm not sure.
I agree with a lot of it. I felt like Spectres was just a little bit a step backwards after Agents of Fortune. I still love it. I think it's a great album. I still want to listen to it a lot and everything. But I ended up you got Godzilla was a 5 for me too, just because it's such a classic. I forgot how great Golden Age of Leather was until I was trying to put on my critical ears and listen to it. I gave that a 4.6. I thought that was awesome. Probably the lowest point for me was Are You Ready to Rock, which I don't think has been mentioned yet. And even that one, I gave it a 3. It's fun. I like it. It just, but it dips down for me more than the others do.
Yeah.
Going Through the Motions was a co-write with Ian Hunter, which I thought was I thought that was bold of them to bring in another songwriter of the caliber of Ian Hunter and work with him. So I give him points for doing something different there, I guess. And you're right, it ended up being like a pop hit covered by Bonnie Tyler, but they're a metal band. So that's they're definitely getting outside of their comfort zone there. And I like when bands do that. So I Love the Night. Oh man, it's so mellow and atmospheric. I love that song too. Overall I love it. I don't think I loved it as much as Agents of Fortune, but that's pretty high, hollowed ground kind of stuff. So
okay. It's funny. Brent, you started off the discussion of Spectres talking about how it's kind of a forgotten album for you, and you forgot how much you liked it. I had that same, in that sense. I agree with you, and I generally agree with everybody here. Where I don't have the same view though is going through the motions. I mean, Bryon, I see what you're saying about it as being, it's out of the box and they're but for me personally, just as a song, it's actually one that I just don't really like it. I don't hate it,
Yeah.
but I don't like it. Like I'm not opposed to skipping it. So I actually give it a 2.
Okay.
And so Brent, you gave that one a 5. You gave
Yeah, I did. I sure did. Yeah.
Yeah, and I gave it a 2, and that's the low point on the album for me. I'm also not a huge fan of Celestial the Queen. That's just not there for me. It's like
I love that song.
2.5, 2.5. However, there are some things on this album I'd like to point out. So I'll just kind of hit from the beginning here. So Godzilla, obviously, it's another one of those songs that's kind of overplayed, but Buck's guitar solo in it just every time I hear it, it's like, yes, that's why I love Buck Dharma. And by the way, this is a good moment to point out that I've got Buck's.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Wow.
Is that a Steinberger?
yeah. So cool. So
It's actual size, isn't it?
Oh, very small man.
He's tiny. He's a
Josh,
tiny
what'd you
person.
say? What'd you say?
It's actual size because he's a tiny
Well,
person.
yeah, I mean, sure. The thing about Golden Age of Letter, when years ago as a kid, I actually didn't like Golden Age of Letter. And it's like, why? Why did I not like this? I don't know. It's so proggy in the sense that it starts off with this this 4-part harmony thing, and the different changes that it goes through. It's by the time you get to the end of the song, it's such a different song, and I love songs that do that. I think Searching for Celine is I like the groove in it. I think it's a cool song. The thing about like I gave Fireworks a 3, but the thing about Fireworks that I just, for whatever reason, when you get to the end of it, Albert Bouchard's kick drum at the end, just listen to the way he's doing the kick drum at the very end of the song. For whatever reason, that little tiny change up that he does just elevates the song a little bit. But and Bryon, you mentioned Are You Ready to Rock? I mean, can you get any cheesier than that? But man, who doesn't love cheese?
I gave that song a 4. I actually really like that song.
Dude, I did too. But it's cheese. And I love cheese. I mean,
cheese can be good. Cheese can be really good.
Yeah, because who will rock with you? I mean,
Josh will. We know that Josh will now. We know that.
They will.
And they will.
They will rock with you. Okay. So, and I don't know. It just has kind of that, it's just kind of got a cool groove to it. So it's cheesy lyrically, but I do love it. But Josh, you made the point. There might not be a better end to an album than I Love the Night into Nosferatu. I mean, 5. That's just, that's like goosebump stuff right there for me.
Yeah, I Love the Night is spine chilling. It's so good. It's so good.
And Nosferatu is so, you're getting back to that kind of creepy element, and you just you think of whether it's the 1922 original version of the of the film, or the remake from is it 79?
79.
Werner Herzog's 79 remake. The images from that, it's like the music just fits. It's like I picture in my mind images from the films when I hear that song. So cool, so great. But for me, this was actually a step up from Agents of Fortune, which I did not expect. I kind of expected Agents of Fortune to be the higher ranking record, but it turns out this was 3.65 for me. A little lower than a couple of you guys rated it, but still it's higher for me than Agents. Bryon, what did you give Spectres?
3.9.
3.9. Okay, cool. All right. Well,
we're going to do the grand finale, Bryon, where we do kind of a recap.
Yeah. To that point, I'm gonna we won't do an aggregate of all of ours together until a couple episodes down the road. But let's just do kind of a recap rundown of how these first 5 rated for us, and
in reverse order, 5 to 1.
Yeah, 5 to 1 in reverse order. So I'm just gonna kind of
We'll do the countdown, like the 3, 2, 1, and hold it up deal.
the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, hold it up deal, and then we'll just kind of see if where we were kind of in agreement and where we differed. So whenever you guys are ready, I'm ready. You guys ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right. In the top, in the 5 spot, in the number 5 spot for me, it was the debut. Ooh.
So again, Bryon, 73%, 3.65
Okay.
star average.
Hang on, Brent. We're waiting for Bryon to.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Tyranny and Mutation for me was
Okay. Okay.
One outlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's consistent with what you were saying earlier. So
Yeah.
okay. Number 4 slot.
you got me doing math. We're math-ish, I guess.
It's all right.
The debut for me, the first one.
Oh, okay. For me, it's Agents of Fortune.
Agents of Fortune,
Mm-hmm.
74%, 3.7 stars.
Okay. And the number 3 spot, and Bryon, you can continue to do the math if you like.
Yeah.
Aha.
I'm thinking more quickly now.
Okay.
Ooh.
Okay.
Um,
So that's number 3 for each of us. Okay.
There's a trend emerging there.
And the number 2, well, let's see.
they're all BFC albums. That's the trend.
That is right. They're all Blue Oyster.
Yeah. It's all connected.
Number 2.
Number 2. Oh, we're all
Nobody has the same number 2.
None of us has the same number.
That's really weird. That doesn't happen very often.
No, does not. Does not. Okay.
That's pretty cool.
In the number 1 slot.
Well,
When I thought that was the trend, I thought we were all going to be aligned on this, but Bryon,
no.
No,
you're the
sorry.
outlier.
by one percentage point.
It's interesting how close some of the numbers are.
Yeah. Well, and somebody could easily would criticize it and go, "Wow!" But if you rated a song a half a point here or a point there different on a when you're in a different mood when you
That's
listen
what's fun.
That's true.
That's what's fun.
That's exactly
I think
right.
that's fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So yeah. We'll tell you
It'd
what.
be boring
Guys,
if it was all.
say what, Bryon? What was that?
It'd be boring if we all like exactly the same things all equally.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's round 1. Part 2, we're going to be doing hang on. So we went up to Spectres. So we're going to be doing Mirrors, Cultosaurus, Fire of Unknown Origin, Revolution by Night, to Club Ninja, correct? That's the next episode. Is that right?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Sounds good.
And
Those
then
are a bunch of great albums.
yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting discussion. Yeah.
then part 3, Imaginos, Heaven Forbid, Curse of the Hidden Mirror, Symbol Remains, and then we could throw in, because it's coming out pretty quickly, Ghost Stories. And and
cool.
I'm okay making at least a few, like I may not mix it into the rankings, but maybe make some references to like the Bad Channel soundtrack. Bryon, you have the Bad Channel soundtrack by chance?
I don't think I do, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that one.
Yeah. There's two songs, and then they do an actual score, and it's a terrible movie, so you should definitely watch it.
I'll put it on my homework list.
I watched it last summer, and it was like, yeah, this is not great, but I had no regrets watching. But we can talk more about that later. So we got a couple more episodes for the catalog, and then we'll come back together again, and we'll do an aggregate. And Bryon, thanks for popping in. I'm glad we could get this going. And do you guys have any last thoughts or comments before we close out?
No, I'm looking forward to round 2.
Yeah,
Okay.
Me too. This was fun.
Cool. All right. Well, folks, as we said at the beginning, we're all involved in creative stuff. We'll put links to things, these plastic things that nobody buys anymore, but we do have things available for streaming. We just did release a song that features guest vocal by former Iron Maiden vocalist Blaze Bayley, which we're really proud of. Our in-house
Congratulations.
writer
That's huge.
loads of stories. H. Prescott Lemon. I don't know if any, Josh, do you know who that is?
He's some loser.
He's someone. Okay. Yeah. And but thanks, if you have stuck with us through this whole thing, we thank you. You're either a big BOC fan or really bored, one of the two. Like our channel, please, and give us some comments. Tell us where we're wrong in our rankings or in our comments on these albums. And again, thanks for watching. Thanks, Bryon, for joining us. And until next time, see ya.